beach out there. He was not adventurous at all. It made me so mad.
I'm just taping you in your story about Bill.
That's it. Amen.
So did you take that trip or you didn't?
No, he wouldn't take me on a trip. He told me I could go by myself.
And he was going to fly there?
I beg your pardon?
You were going to drive there and do all the hard work?
I wanted to drive with the boys. I thought it would be, and Mary, I thought it would be an adventure.
It would be.
But he did not agree. He was not adventurous at all. I got mad, and I never did it to have my trip. I wouldn't go.
Thelma, didn't you take some car trips with the kids out to Massachusetts?
And that was by myself.
Right. And
Not with Bill.
3 boys?
3 boys. They were 1, 3, and 5. And I drove them, and my mother's in the front seat with me, and I drove them to Wells Beach, Maine, which is in the southern part of Maine. And I drove them back home through a hurricane. We had to leave the beach because a hurricane came in. And everybody got off the beach and they were put into a Howard Johnson, which was an ice cream restaurant in the east. And it was off the shore road of Wells Beach. And I got off just in time. They had to have a fire truck come in and take some of the people that didn't have, you know, like the husbands brought the family up and then they went to work for the week and would come back on weekends. And I drove through New Hampshire and Vermont, and I made Albany, New York. And we were detoured. I mean,
were you with
trees
Mimi?
are falling.
Were you with Mimi too? Was Mimi with you?
Mimi's, yeah, Mimi's with. Mimi's and the others. I'm driving Mimi and my 3 boys.
Wow. How were the boys behaved?
They were angels.
Good.
They were scared.
Yeah.
They really were
I'm thinking
scared.
they were terrified.
You know, that was frightening. And it was blowing and raining. Oh, it was terrible.
Thelma,
Never
how
forget
many
it.
years did
But
you?
we
How many
got home
years?
safe.
How many years did you drive out east
Many years.
with your mom?
Even as a little girl, I used to drive out with friends of my mother's. Their daughter used to go out east, and I used to drive out there with Betsy Blackington. And I maybe was 10 years old, and I
Wow.
used to love to go to my grandmother's house. She had a house that was 3 stories, and up in the top story was where I slept. And I was at the age where I didn't have to get up until noon if I, you know, I loved it. I loved it.
How old were you?
At those days, I was around 12, 14 years old.
Okay.
I guess I was about 14. I went out there a lot, even as a little girl, with my mother.
Was that Mimi's mother that you were going to
Yes,
see?
yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
And was she Irish?
Oh, she was so Irish, and she was only 5 feet tall and only weighed 100 pounds. And
Wow.
she was a wonderful cook.
What was her name?
Julia Riley.
Julia Riley.
Well, she was married to Mr. McCann, but Mr. McCann died, so she married Mr. Riley.
Oh, okay.
And that was her second husband,
All right. And so who was Mimi's father?
Mr. McCann. But then she had three sisters. There was my mother, and then there was Helen, and then there was Julia, and then there was Ann.
Okay.
And Ann was a Riley. The rest of them were McCanns.
Okay. So the husband died.
My grandmother's first husband died, and then she married Mr. Riley.
He must have been young.
He must have been, and she must have been young.
Do you know what he died from?
I have no idea.
Wow.
I have no idea. Oh,
And then she remarried.
uh-huh.
Wow.
And she was only 5 feet tall, and she was a riot because she used to pull the curtain down so she could have a drink. Typical Irish. Don't want the neighbors to see.
Wow. Did she have a brogue?
No.
She didn't.
No.
So she
was, I think she was probably born in Ireland. I'm sure she was and came over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But she was a very tiny lady and was a wonderful cook. Marvelous cook, and had there was a rubber mill not too far from their home, and the men would come. She would make a big dinner at noon for the men, and like she would serve maybe 8 men come to her home, and she would serve them dinner
Wow.
at noontime. She was a marvelous cook. Wonderful.
Wow.
Irish cook. She was cute. Very cute. I remember her so well. I remember her. She even did the Irish jig for me, and she was good. She could really Irish jig. So cute. Her name was Shirley, and she lived on Long Island. And she had us home. My girlfriend and I, Barb Sullivan was her name, and she was my roommate at the College of New Rochelle in New Rochelle, New York. She invited us to her home for the weekend. Well, then she gets these guides, and they're going to take us to Jones Beach, which is on, almost like a peninsula, but it's on Long Island. And they came in this convertible, and some of them were I thought kind of seedy looking to me. I don't know where they were. I forget where they went. Some of them went to Florida. I know some went to Florida, but some of these guys, I don't even know where they went to college. And we're in this convertible, and this one guy, he made me nervous. I said, Tamar, we have got to get home. I do not like this one bit. I don't trust these guys. No way. They were not nice.
Plus, you didn't even know them very well.
Huh?
You didn't know them very well.
No, I had just met them.
So they took you to the beach?
Oh, yeah. Well, surely my friend arranged all this stuff. You know, I don't know where she met them, but...
Did they end up being nice? No.
I thought they were a little forward. A little forward, and it made me nervous. I wanted to get home. I didn't like that.
So what did you do with your girlfriends? What did you girls do?
Well, we got home. I mean, thank God.
Did you just tell those guys that you wanted them to take you
Oh,
home?
yeah, we got home, thank God. And this one guy, he kept calling me at school, you know, and I kept thinking, oh my God.
He was calling you?
He went to Colgate University, and
What was his name?
I don't know, all I remember is his nickname, and it was Sleepy.
Oh, yeah.
Sleepy. That was what his name was, so you can imagine his character.
So
I don't
Sleepy.
know where these guys, oh God.
So Sleepy kept calling you?
Huh?
Did he keep calling you?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't take his calls. I just disappeared. I did not like him.
You
at
told
all.
Sleepy to go to sleep.
Sleepy. Really something. When you think of what you do, you know. In fact, it's so funny because, see, my dad wouldn't let me go back. He told me I was having too good a time and I wasn't studying. Which is true, I wasn't. I was having fun.
Thelma,
Ridiculous.
how long were you there?
A year.
1 year?
Yes.
At
It
the-
was a Catholic women's 4-year college. It was the Ursuline nuns.
Okay.
And it was a beautiful, and I really regret it later. I really do. I wish I'd finished. That was stupid. But I can't go back, so I can't do anything about it.
So you were
You know,
out.
my dad, he made me go to work for him. No, that was terrible.
So Thel, you were out there 1 year, and then your dad said you couldn't go back.
He sent me, he said, you're going to learn something so you can work for me. So he sent me to business school.
Okay.
So then I learned how to type. And then I worked for my dad for a while. My dad owned his own company. Then I went to work for American Airlines. And I worked for American Airlines all during World War II. And when Bill came home, I was still working for American Airlines. And I never stopped working until after we were married.
Okay.
Uh,
So what years were those?
those were between like 41 and, you know, Bill came home in 45. I mean, I went out with him, you know, not too long before he went overseas. But we corresponded, and you know, it's so funny. I would write to him, and of course, when you got soldiers got mail over there, it came in bunches, and then they were called out who they were for. They used to say, McIntosh, here's your expensive girlfriend, $4. I was Forberg. My name is Forberg. $4. That's what they and Bill told me all this stuff. I thought, oh my God. That's so funny. Now that I think of it, it's crazy. Oh Lord. So, yeah, it was funny.
So Bill came home in 1945.
Yes, and see, he had been wounded 3 times. And so he was still under doctor's care. And he had to go, when he came back, I'll never forget meeting him. And it's so funny because I see this downtown Detroit, we have a railroad station that is huge, but it's deteriorating. And they're trying to preserve it. It's really sad. And even then, it was going downhill. Not, people were more flying and what have you. And I'll never forget, he came home, he landed in New Jersey. He had been wounded the third time, and they sent him to London, England, to a hospital, and he recuperated there. And then they sent him home, and he landed in New York. His father sent him to Saks Fifth Avenue because he had no clothes. So he went and he was an officer, he was a captain in the infantry, so he went to Saks Fifth Avenue, and they had uniforms, which is kind of surprised me, I have a lot of good memories as a kid,
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Did Mimi look like her, like Julia?
Yeah, in a way. In a way, my mother did, yes. Mother had dark hair. She turned white early. And but my mother was a bigger stature than my grandmother. My grandmother was very teeny tiny.
Okay.
She was very little. Very small woman. But worked very hard. She really did. Very interesting, when you look back, And it's interesting because my aunts, my mother's sisters, one worked for Armour and Company, one worked for the bank, and one worked for telephone company, and it was Woonsocket, Rhode Island, which is about 16 miles north of Providence, Rhode Island. So we used to go to the beach a lot. We'd go down to Narragansett, and my aunts would have a house down there. They'd rent a home, and for the month, and I would stay out there most of the summer with them, which was nice. It was easy, and so it was my childhood. I have some good memories, Fun.
So when you took the boys out east, were you out there all summer?
When they were little, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they were little. Yeah, they would come with me. And I would be out there for a month. That's how long. 1 month.
Okay.
Because it was not my cottage, it was my mother and dad's cottage. My mother and dad rented it.
Okay.
and then my dad and Bill would come out too.
Okay.
But you know, they worked, so they couldn't come very often. So, but it's wonderful being by the ocean. But to see a hurricane coming in on the Atlantic. This house was 2 stories, and it was a wooden structure house. And I went upstairs the day I was leaving and looked out into the ocean, and it looked so mean it was really scary. I was so glad to get off that island, because see, Wells Beach was like a peninsula into the ocean.
Okay.
And so it's a little north of Ogunquit. You probably have heard of Ogunquit, Maine.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds really pretty.
It was. It's a beautiful part of the country if you ever get a chance to visit. It really is. The ocean is gorgeous, and the beaches are pure white sand. Lovely.
Was there good food there?
I beg your pardon?
Was there good food there?
What I
Fish,
Was there
like good
like
food.
Fish, like lobsters?
The food, was the food good?
Oh, see, now that's another thing. We would go and buy live lobster,
Yum.
and we'd bring them home live. And we'd stick them in the fridge, and they'd crawl around the fridge. And then we would boil a big pot of water and throw those babies right into the big pot, salted. We would get the salt water from the ocean for what they were cooked in.
Oh.
And then this is what the dinner was. Outside we had a long table with oilcloth, and we'd have corn on the cob and lobster. That's it.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was. But it was interesting to see them crawling up that pot. Those lobster wanted to get out of there. And nobody knew how to eat a lobster. That's not easy to eat.
Yeah.
It's my mother.
She did?
Oh, she knew how. I tried to learn from her, but I never did. There is meat in a lobster that you do not get to, that is so sweet. And my mother would say, "You've got to get in this little crevice and this, you know." That's
She
why
knew.
they give you those tools.
Yeah.
Have you ever? Do you like lobster?
Yes, I love it.
Okay. But it's hard. Got to learn how to
Yeah.
get all that meat out. Yeah.
But Mimi knew how to get it all
Oh
out.
my God, yes. Yeah.
Did your dad like it?
Oh yes, yeah. My dad loved it too, and my dad and Bill would come, you know, but they were working,
Right.
and they'd come for a week or so. you
Okay.
know. Yeah. Yeah. It's a long time ago.
It sounds like fun.
It was, and lots of good memories. Lots of good memories. Lots of good memories. Lots of good memories.
Yeah.